So I read this article the other day and I thought, wow, that is such a metaphor alert. I mean, it's just amazing. Here's the title. A grenade-armed Ukrainian drone spotted two Russian soldiers. One Russian lit a smoke and asked the drone operator to kill his comrade first. And he's pointing at him like he's over there. Just go get him, right? Okay, so what do I mean by metaphor alert? Well, so I read a book a number of years ago called Parliament of Horrors. It's by P.J. O'Rourke. He wrote for Rolling Stones for many years. He was very liberal turned libertarian, and he wrote about some of his travels. Um, I'm pretty sure it was in Parliament of Horrors. It was in one of his books. He was talking about Afghanistan and what it was like in Afghanistan, and they had this sport called Buzgazi, and Buzgazi was like this thing where you have horsemen on either side. They're trying to pick up a calf. A calf's head has been severed, right? And they're trying to pick up a calf's head and put it in a barrel on the other side of the field. And he said something like, okay, so the other team's against you, but once you pick it up, so's your whole team. They're all trying to take it from you so that they can win, which is kind of a metaphor alert for Middle East politics. If I have my facts straight, it was from that book and that kind of thing. So this is a metaphor alert. So this it tells us more about what's actually happening than just a story itself. So here's the guy pointing out his fallen comrade. He's a Russian soldier pointing out over there when a drone comes with a grenade. What happens on this landscape when Ukrainian drone engages a pair of demoralized Russian troopers? An important microcosm for Russia's wider war. Like their language of microcosm is like my metaphor alert. You learn something more about this than just a story. The grenade-armed drone from the Ukrainian State Border Service locates two lonely Russian soldiers in their shallow dugouts. Okay. In the drone's video feed, which Ukrainian border guards recently posted online, the Russian soldier appears to be alone. No other forces are visible. That's metaphor alert number one. Where are the rest of them? Why did they abandon him? Both Russians know that the UAV is there. One cowers on his side, quaking and covering his head. The other calmly sits, puffs a cigarette, and makes eye contact with the drone's operator through the machine's camera. The smoking Russian gestures toward his cowering comrade. Kill him, not me. Okay, so that's the first metaphor here that is really important. The way that they treat each other, the way that they value life, the way that they go about this. And I'm going to contrast with this with two bits about how Ukraine acts in the same kind of situation. The drone operator obliges. As the smoker watches from just a few feet away, the drone drops its grenade directly on the cowering soldier. Maybe the drone carried just one grenade, or maybe the drone had more than one grenade and the smoker was desperate to live just a short while longer at any moral cost. In any event, the merciless drone operator doesn't spare the smoker. It's not hard to imagine what the Ukrainian drone operator was thinking. They were thinking about the thousands of Ukrainian civilians, the elderly, the pregnant mothers, the frightened children the Russians have murdered in their pointless war of choice. Or were they thinking of the Ukrainian soldiers who tried to surrender near Robotny only to be gunned down by their would-be Russian captors? Because that happened as well. And that's part of the metaphor. It's something that's very different between the Russians and the Ukrainians. It's less clear what the smoker was thinking as he betrayed his terrified comrade. It's a truism of Western military philosophy that soldiers form strong bonds in combat and come to be motivated by their love for their comrades more than they are by any inconcrete love of country or cause. This camaraderie is evident on the front line in Ukraine, where Ukrainian soldiers increasingly internalizing Western philosophy fight against the Russians and for each other. But this isn't what's going on here. Contrast that with one Russian soldier negotiating with the Ukrainian drone to kill another Russian first. The Russian philosophy of military morale hinges on a concept that's misunderstood in the West. It's called Dukhanovnost. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that, I'm sorry. Roughly, it means spirituality. Now, this is the next thing, because this spirituality that's supposed to be motivating soldiers is what has been hijacked in Russia to kind of make the Russians look like they're this morally traditional values kind of crowd that they're really not. But it's borrowed, it's used, they're putting the cloak of this on even though they're not really that. Soldiers follow orders and risk their lives in service of a communal state whose existence is God ordained and which is bigger than any one Russian. The Russian model of soldier morale emphasizes a spirit of cooperation in the emotionally based community which must exist in the military collective for the model to function in the heat of battle. Okay, but that's common to other things like the greater good, service over self or others first, that kind of thing. The smoker's cowardly betrayal of his comrade makes a mockery of this. It didn't grow organically. It's the cover story for a dictatorial regime whose motives are corrupt and anything but spiritual. And I thought, yes, that's exactly right. What Putin is projecting Russia to be, what he's projecting their motives to be, their traditional family values. Like, he's talking about recently they were talking about abortion and don't have abortions and have large families. So I'm a conservative, right? And I'm like, I have a large family and I value life, but not because I want to fix the demography of Russia and grow more soldiers so that they can build their empire. We look similar, but we're on two very different planes. So that's another part of the metaphor here. Russia soldiers stay in line mostly in part because it's their spiritual duty to do so. But when the national spiritualism shows its true face, as when a Russian regiment abandons two unprotected soldiers along this frigid front line, and then death arrives in the form of a grenade-clutching Ukrainian drone, at least one soldier, a smoker, abandons all notions of some greater good, of duty. He puffs on his smoke and points the drone toward his fellow Russian. Now, I think there's a real vulnerability within the Russian military because of this lacking underpinning that seems strong but isn't really, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a metaphor for the corruption within the military that has caused all kinds of problems. The corruption that has said, hey, we have X number of working tanks when they didn't work out so well, or that kind of thing. Okay, let me go on and contrast this now with some other things. So here is another article, a Ukrainian unit rescued by a captured soldier from a Russian trench using drones, video appears to show. So this was a Ukrainian unit. A Ukrainian serviceman said his unit rescued a captured fellow soldier using drones. What a contrast. The soldier said neighboring units were under attack and Russians had taken over a trench when his brigade launched 3 crews of drones in a bid to help his fellow soldiers. As their drones flew over the Russian position, he said they spotted a military captive from another unit tied up in the trench. We successfully destroyed the enemy, the soldier said. There were a lot of wounded and the remaining group left. With only one Mavic drone left and a single grenade strapped to it, the servicemen said they used flashing lights to signal to the captive soldier that it was a friendly drone. We turned the drone's cameras around, flew to the left, and that's how he started to leave the position, he added. Now, as he made his way out, he was confronted with another Russian soldier on the other side of the trench. But the drone unit struck the enemy soldier. Drones have shown themselves to be very good. They not only successfully destroyed the enemy, but also saved lives, he added. This is not the first time Ukraine has used drones to carry out our rescue efforts. Now, if that's not enough of a metaphor alert to show the contrast in the way that drones are being handled, let's just talk about the contrast in the way that the soldiers acted. Do you remember this guy, Alexander Matsievsky? I'm very sorry if I mispronounce his name. He's a guy, he comes out of a trench, he's standing there, he's smoking a cigarette, and he's gunned down. His face is blotted out here in this article 10 months ago. It was in March of 2023. Now, this is the same guy, you probably remember his face from news articles if you were paying attention. They created a monument to him. He's the guy that's, his last words were, "Glory to Ukraine," and then he's gunned down. And then here's a life-size monument that, is in a casing. This is his mother looking at the monument to him, right? Like, what was his last words? It wasn't, "Go over there and, kill my comrades back in this cave over there. He's hiding in the woods." It wasn't that. It was "Glory to Ukraine." Quite a contrast, right? And that's another metaphor alert. It tells you a lot about the spirit of the Ukrainians. All right. Thank you for your time. I hope that helps you understand some things in context. And there's just so much in here that's telling about each side and how they think and how they process. Tell me what you thought about this. Was this helpful? Did this add to your understanding, put that in the comments below. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the comments. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.